Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Som TV podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wise. We are here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, one of my now favorite regions. I just have come to adore this place so much. We're in the caves of Abbot Claim, a winery that makes stupendous Pinot and Chardonnay. And I'm with the winemaker at Abbot Claim, Alban, Debeaulieu. And we're going to talk about the concept of art and craft in wine and do a little bit of comparison with movies. It sounds crazy, but there is a direct through line with the way people perceive and think about wine, think about art, and think about movies in a way that I think really got me thinking when we started talking about this last night. Before we do that, I want to remind everybody that we have a brand new feature-length film coming, a new Verticals episode coming at the beginning of November on the Laithwaite family. This is a family that goes back and forth between Bordeaux and the UK. They're one of the pioneers of UK sparkling wine, but more than that, they are the winemakers who make the wine at Windsor Castle. This is a wine that has been made since nearly the Battle of Hastings. Since 1066, there have been grapes on this property, and they are now the stewards of doing that. One of the holy grails for me of telling a story, and finally we got to do it. So that's coming in just 2 weeks to Som TV. Make sure you subscribe. Go to somtv.com, and if you're an industry member, you're a server, a bartender, a barback, you work at a country club, you work at the convenience store, and you sell wine or talk to people about beer, I want you to be a member. So message us on our Instagram. Go to Som TV at Som TV Streaming and message us, and I will send you a crazy discount, which is stupid if we're trying to make money, but good if we want you to watch our content, and we do. So message us there or email us hello@somtv.com if you cannot afford a membership to this, because we want you guys to see this stuff. It's great. All right, everybody, without further ado, my friend Alban. Alban, it's a pleasure to have you on the show for a little conversation here. We've been talking about movies and wine and kind of how they intersect. And not just like wine that's in movies like we normally do on this podcast, but more of just the perception of kind of how you look at wine, perceive it, and the way you perceive movies. And you being French and me being extremely American, I can see in your eyes that you think I'm too American right now. I think there's a really interesting way of approaching kind of what makes those two topics interesting and what they are. And so the two of us were mentioning the idea of like independent cinema, independent wine. I like to think of genres. You think of like a romantic comedy or like a horror film or any of this stuff. And there is a really interesting parallel with wine, in our opinion. So we're going to get a little geeky here, but we're also going to hopefully keep it as high a level as we can that people can reach up and grab it and not let it fly over their head.
Sure.
So let me ask you something really quick. Being French, and this is a very big blanket statement, but being French, how do you, when you put a glass of wine in front of you and you smell it and you taste it, how do you think you perceive it in a different way than I do, say as an American?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, it's a matter of culture. I always say that, I've been in the US making wine for 12 years now. It struck me quite early on how people just have a different relationship with the product. I would say that, wine tracks culture, civilization, history. And in France, when you have a glass of wine, at least growing up, all of those things are in the back of your mind when you taste it. When you taste the wine, you're always linking it to tradition, place, old names, multi-generational work, techniques that are very regional. Whereas what I've humbly seen in the US is simply that first it's maybe seen as a specialty product, something that's that's a bit more, that can be traded on, that can be intellectualized, that can be commented, that can be manufactured. That can be the subject of speculation, collecting, that can be debated, and that can be intellectualized and conceptualized. But
you don't do that in France?
You do, but maybe with a bit more, in a more rooted, in a more simple way, without forgetting that it's an agricultural product, first and foremost, that it's a food. Mm-hmm. We can't forget that. And I think that here maybe we discuss wine in a bit of a conceptual bubble. It becomes almost plastic. It becomes...
Give me an example of what you mean.
The whole business of reviewing and scoring wines is perfectly American. It's. I mean, honestly, that is the easiest example to illustrate what I've just gone through.
Yeah, the British are a little to blame for it too.
Yeah, but same. I mean, same. It's the same. Culturally, there's a through line that's perfectly comparable.
Okay.
Because it's an outside perspective, and so from an outside perspective, I suppose you can feel like you have the right to do that. In France, it's a whole lot more difficult to feel like that there's so much distance between us and that product that we can comment it and score it and critique it as, it's good. It's much more difficult to remove yourself from the fact that it's an agricultural product and a food, and there's a certain reverence that comes with that that I think has prevented us from having those types of perspectives on wine.
All right, I want to try to not derail this, but I don't know if you're familiar with Americans' fear of anything that's bad. Meaning like we're terrified of sex.
Yeah.
We all love it, but we're terrified of it. We're terrified of alcohol. In fact, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we banned it for several years a while back.
I've heard, yeah.
It was a really, really smart decision for crime, at least. Mm-hmm. We're just afraid of these types of things. And so when you go to France and there's wine on the table at lunch, Americans would think automatically, oh, you're going to abuse that. It's alcohol. Whereas the French are just like, I'm just going to have a glass because it tastes good with this food I'm eating. So it's a very different mentality, which I as much as I would love to stick up for my fellow brethren, I agree with you. It is the way you approach the wine. It's more mechanical here.
Yeah, because again, there's more distance between the culture, the society, and the product. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have the same history, the same cultural kind of thickness and layers, and
it's just not a part of everyday life.
Yeah,
though, too.
And so it's the same in the U.S. and the West Coast in particular, which is probably particularly young in terms of culture and always morphing and shifting and changing fast. You look at wine and you look at many other things. I mean, it's great bread. Great bread is just as the subject of experiments and it's conceptualized and it's put on a pedestal. Great bread is somewhat put on a pedestal today on the West Coast. It's mind-boggling to me.
Really, in all of America, you don't even have to single out the West Coast. I mean, I just recently was filming in France, and we got back, and the whole thing all we talk about is why can't we have that? Why can't we have really good bread all the time everywhere? Like, what is the reason that I have to spend $40 on a loaf of bread that is 4 euros, 3 euros in France and literally everywhere? I mean, just like you're expected to just have good bread. I don't understand what we're doing wrong here. There's a lot of economic reasons, but I think that talking about what we're talking about is we're not going to fix this, because unless the Americans can figure out a way to make a ton of money on good bread at every corner and, people riding bikes, buying baguettes and having a $11 bottle of incredible wine, it's just not going to work. We're not going to.
No, I'm not. I'm
not anti-capitalist. I'm just saying.
No, I absolutely don't disagree. I'm not sure it's meant to be or it's even structurally possible. It's just that is the difference. It's simply that distance exists, and it ends up leading to things that are commodity basically in Europe, that are simple things, ends up being put on a pedestal somewhere else. It's not just in the US. I mean, it's just in,
I don't know if you've ever been to a place called Italy or anything like this. Yeah, it's not. Look,
it's great branding.
Great, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That's quite impressive.
Really, I kind of think somebody who just was drunk and walked into something, hit their head, and went Italy.
I think it's pretty brilliant.
All right, well,
I mean, it's working.
It sticks in your brain. Yeah. So we were talking about movies, as I often try to steer every darn conversation into. We were talking about sort of independent cinema, and I think this is an important thing to think about the way we look at wine and the way you look at wine. All right, not to other each other here, but we were talking about kind of independent film and the way people look at movies in France. And this is something I'm very familiar with, because French films are decidedly very different. And Americans have this perspective that it's kind of artsy. It's always black and white and people are always smoking and looking, off in the distance and there's a mime, or some ridiculous thing that's not really true at all. But there is an appreciation of cinema, and it's a cliche that is true. There's an appreciation of cinema in France and with French people that is totally different than Americans. Americans have a different memory for movies. but they love movies. The French have a very deep memory for movies, and I think see as many as we do. And I'm convinced that the French love our movies 10 times more than we do across time.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, there are so many directors who are adored in France.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Scorsese, Brian De Palma, all of these. I mean, there are even like, you know, certain Spielberg films that were not particularly loved when they were released here in the United States, like Empire of the Sun and things like that, that were Cahiers du Cinema, you know, named like the greatest movie of the year. I think it's a fascinating thing that maybe it's just the French have more time to think about things and appreciate it. I don't know.
You know, it's interesting because I don't know cinema history as much as you do, but during the Nouvelle Vague in France, you had Godard and Truffaut, and you just talked about the Les Cahiers du Cinéma. Those guys were looking towards what was happening in the US a lot, and they were very much inspired by the freedom and the speed and the edginess of some of the movies in the US, and there was a lot of cultural exchange there. And didn't Truffaut find himself into a Spielberg movie at one point?
Absolutely.
Right?
He's in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah,
so it's pretty...
And it's one of the only times that I'm aware of he acted. He'd never acted before.
Yeah, was he in La Nuit Américaine, talking about overlaps?
See, now we're going over people's heads, but yes, he absolutely was.
See, that's pretty cool. It's called La Nuit Américaine, The American Nights, and it's directed by Truffaut. It's kind of interesting. Now I'm wondering, was there this much recognition by the French towards American movies and vice versa before that Nouvelle Vague moment? During the Nouvelle Vague, there was a lot of exchange and overlap between independent American cinema and independent French cinema, and I was wondering if that exchange existed before that.
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I really do. I think in silent era times, and I think especially with films like, you know, the stuff that Hitchcock did in America, not, you know, he's a British film director, but a lot of his work was here. North by Northwest and all of these films that he did were huge hits in France. And the French loved these films, and I think there really was. But the thing that also is really important to mention are people like Quentin Tarantino. You know, without these French films and the French New Wave and all that stuff, I don't know that there would be a Quentin Tarantino.
No, I mean, his production house is called Bande à Part.
Yeah, A Band Apart, right?
Which is Godard.
A Godard film.
Yeah.
And so I think people might be listening going, well, what does this have to do with wine? I think that the important thing to think about movies and wine is that it's so easy to look at it either as a craft or an art. You know, and I want to know, when you think of a movie or you think of wine, do you think of that as an art or do you think of that as a craft? You make decidedly, and I'd say this whether you were sitting next to me or not, one of the best American wines I've had in 2025. I mean, I'm drinking right now. You guys make the Pinots up here are outrageous. Chardonnay's incredible. I mean, but it is a decidedly introspective and thoughtful style that I'm not, I can say with authority, I'm not entirely used to here in the States.
Your question was...
An art or a craft?
Art or a craft, and a craft would be a more process-driven, maybe technique-driven work and less intuition into a craft?
Sure, because what I want to get into, and if you're not afraid to name names, let's do movies in place of wines, but I'd like to talk about some wines where you go, that is a piece of art, and that is a craft. That is a technical piece of... There's nothing wrong with that, because when I look at a film like, I'm going to be goofy here, but I'm serious, Armageddon.
Yeah.
A movie that I like very much. It's ridiculous. It is the most absurd, entertaining thing I can name off the top of my head right now, but it's a craft. Yeah. You look at that movie and you're not like, you know, Liv Tyler is taking animal crackers and putting them across Ben Affleck, or he's doing that to her or whatever, and Aerosmith is playing. You're not like, wow, the art in this scene. You're more of like, wow, you got two movie stars that are going to bang after this scene. I'm in. So but it's really just a craft. And there are wines just like that.
Of course. Like, I mean, there's both.
You want Armageddon sometimes. There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, yeah. And there's also, in terms of volume, there's more Armageddon wine out there, as there is the great wines that's, for me, the greatest wines I've ever had. They amount to a whole that is obviously greater than the sum of its parts, where you just can't break it down into smaller pieces. It's hard to understand what is going on, right? It is incredible, but as someone who's also a technician, who has a technical understanding of how you make wine, how you can craft a wine, a great wine just like a great movie, a great piece of art, it's mostly mystery, and it's beautiful and it's shocking. And as much as you think you understand wine, you just can't quite understand how the hell. I mean, I had the greatest bottle of wine I've ever had in my life. I think either it was earlier this year or late last year. I can't remember. I think it was late last year. And I literally didn't think that wine could taste like that. And I've been enjoying wine since I was a kid in France. And I've made wine for over a decade now. And I tasted that bottle of wine, and I didn't even think it was possible that wine could have those textures and flavors and
What was it?
aromas. It was a 62 Musigny from Roumier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Georges Roumier.
Yeah, that's
Musigny 62. It's
a 1962 Roumier. So,
and there was also 58 Bonnemar, which also was very different. And also, these are the two greatest. Anyway,
do you hang out with Russian oligarchs often, or is that
was on the every other week?
Yeah, sounds fun.
Oh.
No, I have a similar thing, and I've said it numerous times. I'm sure people are tired of me saying it, but I drank a 69 Chave Hermitage with Jean-Louis Chave, and it's in the second movie I directed, the Somme film at least. And it was one of those where I just can't. I think about it all the time. It's a wine that reminds me of how I will never truly understand how something can reach a level.
Yeah,
you know?
And so see, that's the alchemy. That's the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. You get synergetic things, and you have terroir and man and fermentation and just adds up to something that you can't quite wrap your head around, and that is mind-boggling, and obviously much greater than we are. And it's towering. And it's the same thing when you've watched, I don't know, the first time you've watched Days of Heaven of Terrence Malick, or the first time you've watched Le Mépris from Godard. And then do
you know how much I love Days of Heaven?
Yeah, it's my favorite Malick.
Oh my God! I wish we were doing a Terrence Malick podcast right now.
And then the movie ends. It's just about how it made you feel, and you just really want to watch it again because you want to keep digging and digging and digging. And even today, I know I really love those movies, but I also love them because it adds up to. I mean, one of my top 3 movies ever is Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. And that's the same thing. Yeah.
I would go Persona for me.
Oh, no,
I
I
was
like
gonna
Seven
go
Seal.
Bergman.
I like Seven Seal better.
Well, Seven Seals, I mean, Seven Seals on the list of, I'm trying to think of a wine it would compare to. It would probably be like, some 1945 Bordeaux, something. I mean, like a wine that is just like a gold standard of one of the greatest films ever made. That Seven Seal is with Citizen Kane and with Seven Samurai and with, all the best of the best. So it's incredible you would call a movie like that out, as far as like being one of your favorites. I don't think a lot of Americans would have. I wonder if there's like a thing. It's like, for me to say one of the most obvious best movies ever made is my favorite, people would go, well, come on, that's unoriginal, even though it is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah, I mean, for good reasons, probably. That's why great classics are great classics, is because they're that good.
Absolutely. But I think there's a lot of people that want to try to be esoteric and be like, and with wine too, though. I mean,
yeah, but there's a point where the more you get to interact with wine, and the more you get exposed to wine, and then you understand, the more you accumulate knowledge, then ultimately, I mean, maybe not everybody, but Picasso is Picasso because everyone knows who he is just because he was that good, and he was good at a point where he was both. It's just a universal. That art is universal. There's no one can't leave anyone, whether you know art or you don't know art, indifferent. And same thing for Mozart. Mozart is Mozart. Everyone knows Mozart because Mozart because it's just perfect. And so that's what it comes down to.
You talk about Picasso or Mozart and these people, especially Picasso, he was squeezed. I mean, the Spanish Civil War arguably is what made him, I know his pink period and his blue period and all that stuff is very famous, but his work, once he started experiencing extreme trauma, is I think what made him Picasso that we know today, Guernica and all of that stuff. And I wonder with wine, it's kind of a similar thing. Wine that is made in a place where the weather's always perfect and nobody has to suffer, and the vines they're all irrigated and everything's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to find a Picasso in that situation. I mean, you're just not going to. You mentioned Days of Heaven. It was a hard-ass movie to make. From what I understand, Richard Gere hated making that film.
Oh, really?
And yet afterwards, adored the movie and was so proud of having.
I guess it
through
maybe it kind of makes sense. It kind of shows on his face during the whole movie. That
Absolutely,
I think he's in pain. Yeah,
I think it is unquestionably his best role that he's ever been in. I would get a lot of blowback from people who like American Gigolo or something like that, but I think that when it comes to wine, it's really important to think about. The French have this: vines have to struggle. Every vintage is not good. Not always. I mean, even the greatest wineries where Americans are like, how was it? It was perfect. It's just like, how was it? The vintage was great. And I don't know if that's to sell wine or it's just our mentality of trying to sell ourselves.
I think it might be counterproductive, honestly, ultimately. I mean, I think it's important to have a purist attitude about your work, making sure that what you do speaks for itself. When we started Abbot in 2017. That's when I started. That's when I arrived. That's when we started this whole thing. And in 2017, I made a whole vintage of red wine. We just never bottled it because I just wasn't happy with it. And it would have been, for the long term, would have been a disservice to us and to the idea of Abbot to start with something that we couldn't really stand behind the way we wanted to stand behind our work.
That's ballsy, though.
Yeah, but we had to. The only wine we bottled in 2017 was a Chardonnay from purchased grapes from a vineyard called Ex-Army, which we have a long-lasting relationship with at this point, and we bottle every year. It's very unique wine, and it was impeccable, and it always is. So we didn't mess that up in 17, but the Pinot just wasn't happy with our performance, and I think it's important to have that purist stance. Just to go back to what you were saying about how great things can come from maybe hardship a little bit and difficulties. It's interesting to see a lot of Burgundian producers come and be involved in Oregon to make wine. The fact is that Burgundy is a perfect place for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And like a Grand Cru in Burgundy, it's not handed to you, but a lot of the work is already done by the fact that you're working with incredible plant material, old vines, with an incredibly fine and delicate and qualitative level of genetic adaptation to its environments, an amazing terroir. And then it's all about not messing it up, but the potential is there so naturally and it's there so high. Whereas here, a very young burgeoning wine industry still. Right now you have the second generation of vintners. We're into the second generation of vintners only. My friends Mikey Etzel, Jackson Holstein, are second generation vintners. And there's no third generation quite yet working and growing grapes. So anyway, that's just for perspective. And everything, you have to learn everything. And you have to stumble and we're trying to refine plant material and we're longing for vines to get older and we're discovering new terroirs and understanding that some that may have been planted 30, 40 years ago were not ideal spots. And we're planting new vineyards in new areas. We were at Lily Springs yesterday together, trying to find what a great terroir in Oregon can be and what it has to say. And that's difficult and it's not handed to you. And so it's interesting to see Burgundians come with a knowledge and a perspective and having to deal with what I just went through with how difficult and unknown it can be here and how it's really not handed to you. And from my perspective, having trained in Burgundy, worked here for 12 years, and now going back to Burgundy to also make wine and starting a small domain there with Anthony, the owner of Abbot. We just started this year to piece together a small domain. And going back there and working with raw material that is of such incredible quality, after having had to work so hard here to extract quality and get creative and think about the work in ways that I didn't think I would have to. Just trying to push the boundaries of what is. It's just not easy. It's not handed to you. So just going back there and working with things that are just so naturally, the chemistry is perfect, even in quote unquote difficult vintages. Tannins are perfect. It's beautiful and it just kind of makes itself. So it feels like it makes itself at least. So anyways, it's an interesting dynamic. I'm not sure how it really links to the whole cinema conversation anymore, but that was an interesting dynamic.
Look, there are certain people who make films, and I think I'm going to say something. I don't think this has been pointed out in many Tarantino films that the Americans do not appreciate directors. Whereas you go to France and the director is somebody who is appreciated. People know who it is. They know who made the film.
He's the artist.
And one thing I wanted to bring this back to, and exactly what you're describing, is the winemaker the artist in France. Because in America, most people will go, I love this wine. They have no idea who made it. And I'm not talking about like you. I'm not talking about someone who's studying enology. I'm not talking about somebody studying for the Master of Wine or whatever. But if you're a wine drinker, like why do you know who made the wine?
I don't know. I would argue that that's very American, very Hollywood-like. Those terms, and you know them more than anybody. You've probably interviewed and filmed all those people. The rock star chef, the rock star sommelier, the rock star winemaker. It's the most American thing ever. There is a certain people love to idolize the maker, the creator.
Yeah.
Whereas in France, often the role of the person is not to make something out of something that is not, but it's just to understand what is bigger than we are. What is the valuable story to tell? What is the artist is? It's going to be ridiculous to say this, but the artist is often the terroir, the vine, the fruits in France, and
that's the most French thing I've ever heard.
I should have gone a little heavy on the French accent too, but you learn in Burgundy more than anywhere else. You learn how to position yourself vis-a-vis in relationship to what is foundational, and I'm not foundational. I'm fleeting. And my ideas and my skill set and my knowledge is changing. But the foundational things, the big things, it's geology, terroir, vines interacting with the environment. And so we don't look, I think people in France and in Europe in general don't look up to the human as much as the American public loves to idolize again the ego that's behind the products.
Yeah, but it's also watching somebody do something incredible. It's like, watching Michael Jordan, shoot with a half a second left is pretty impressive. It's pretty.
Yeah, you want to be entertained, and you just want to. Yeah, you want to look up to those kind of magicians and think they're just gods, and so people love to do that in the US in particular. I think you always need your superhero and your star chef and
yeah. Really quick to close this out. I know you're in the middle of harvest. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably heard all sorts of winery sounds and such throughout, which is the best. I can't believe I've been able to sit down with you and film what we filmed. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you need to go to Som TV. You got to watch my conversation with this wonderful person about Burgundy in Oregon, and then also some stuff about Chardonnay here. You are a great communicator, and the wines are great. But before we close, I'm going to name some movies, and you're going to tell me what wine it is. Okay? And if you have not seen the movie I mentioned, you have to take a drink.
Okay. Oh my God.
Okay? So we're going to do a few of these. Are you ready?
Okay.
Jaws. Steven Spielberg's Jaws.
Yeah, seen it. Perfect craft. That's a perfect 100-pointer Napa wine from whenever Jaws came out, 70s or something.
So Jaws came out in what, 75?
So it would have to be just a great classic Napa cap from the late 70s, yeah.
Okay.
Just,
you have a producer in mind?
No, BV or something.
Yeah, that's actually Telechev would have been there. So
yeah,
okay,
right.
That works.
He's the Spielberg of Napa wine. I
guess. That's a really good. I like that. Okay, all right. Let's go. Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon.
One of the most perfect wine ever made. That's kind of borderline. That's the thing. Kubrick is interesting. Is it craft or is it art? It's both perfected, right? It's both because that movie was shot. Look, we're actually in a candlelit space right now. Mm-hmm. That movie was shot candlelit light, all natural light, crazy space manufactured lenses to be able to capture that light.
Where have you been all my life? Where have you been?
It's perfect craft and perfect art. It's one of my all-time greatest movies of all time. So it would have to be something like the first time I've ever got exposed to the Domaine de la Romanée-Conti was actually blind. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. And it was
somebody blinded you on DRC.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever had it, which was incredible. It was an incredible experience because I remember having full-on body-wide shivers, because for the first time I had tasted something that I did not understand. And it blew my mind, and it was delicious. But I also did not understand. It was the first time I had the experience of, wow, I didn't realize wine could taste like that. And it's mind-boggling. And so that would maybe something like that. It was Richebourg 2000. Yeah, it would be maybe something like that.
That's an incredible call. I got to tell you, as an aside, a winemaker and a dear friend of mine named Rajat Par, he blind tasted me on Latash. It was when I was making the first Somm movie at his restaurant RN74, and I had never had DRC as well.
Wow.
And so that's the first time. I can't believe you share a similar story, because that wine, I didn't even know. I was like, I thought, am I drinking like velvet with a memory? Like, it was the most incredible thing I had ever. I didn't understand. I wasn't, and I'm still not smart enough to talk about a wine like that.
No, that's cool. I mean, velvet with a memory. Yeah, see, that's what we're talking about. It's so hot. It's mind-boggling.
It really, truly is. And then I found out what it costs, and I was like, holy crap. And now it's even more expensive. All right, another film. We'll do this quick. Night of the Living Dead, the 1968 George Romero horror film.
Haven't seen. So
all right, take a drink.
I'm gonna have a drink. I don't like horror movies. I don't like scary movies. I find them scary, and I don't enjoy the feeling.
I think that's the point of them.
It just doesn't work for me. I don't enjoy it.
All right, Indiana Jones. 2 Spielberg films so far.
Yeah, I mean, pure entertainment. It's fun. It's light-hearted. It's very much American as well, of course. It would have to be. Oh God, it's so difficult. William Selliam.
Oh, that's a great call.
Selliam, Pinot Noir.
That's a great call. Oh, great, fantastic call. Okay, William Selliam, Pinot Noir. Watch the Behind the Glass on Somm TV, by the way, guys. All right, what about Francois Truffaut, 400 Blows? Little Antoine Donnell.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening to this and has not seen these movies, you need to watch them.
I mean, that is one of the best movies ever made. A great bottle of Clos Rougeard with age.
Wow.
And just it's of place. It's super culturally relevant, but at the same time, it
kind of experimental.
Yeah, and it also it transcends terroir and varietal at the same time. I mean, it's one of those. Yeah, maybe I would say that.
That's great. We'll do the very last one. What about? Have you seen Guy Ritchie's Snatch?
Yeah.
Okay, Guy Ritchie's Snatch, British crime film.
So fast-paced, entertaining, experimental. Brad Pitt.
Yes, Brad Pitt.
Is hilarious in it.
You like dykes?
Yeah, he's. Yeah.
Oh, dogs.
Yeah, movie's nuts. Soundtrack is incredible.
Soundtrack is so good.
So you want so it would have to be an American wine, because I don't have a British wine to go with it, because it's like kind of like Fight Club. What? So you want a movie like a really cool but also alternative, edgy, a bit American, fast-paced wine.
What do you got?
Okay, I'm gonna be in Oregon, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be a Cameron Clos Electric.
That's a good call, Cameron. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, that's good. I wonder, this would be a fantastic dinner to pair all these wines, and I guess it'd be like a 9-hour dinner to watch all these movies. Probably longer.
Right.
All right, we'll do one last.
Cool.
This is going to be the last one. Why don't we do, trying to think of something everybody's seen and everybody loves. You have to have seen Hitchcock's Psycho.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, you've seen a horror film then. All right, Hitchcock's Psycho.
The same thing. I mean, I don't know if it qualifies, but yeah.
Hitchcock's Psycho, a black and white film, lots of twists, very disturbing. And if anybody listening to this has not seen Psycho, when did Psycho come out? 1960, I think?
Oh yeah, I've got one. So he's a Brit, right? So I'm gonna go with a claret, with a wine that Brits like very much. And I'm gonna go with my favorite, which I think is an all-time great, Vieux Château Certain.
Yeah.
Vieux Château Certain in Pomerol is one of my favorite places. Just one of my favorite producers in the wine world. And I think it would fit Hitchcock quite well.
That's a great call, especially with the British, the link, all that stuff. All right, we got to do Armageddon. Armageddon, what are you picking? What's your Armageddon wine?
Rombauer.
Rombauer is a great call. Listen, I will watch Armageddon and drink Rombauer with you any day of the week.
Sure, that sounds good.
It is a true pleasure. You got to get back to Harvest. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate your time.
It.
You owe me 2 drinks. You didn't see one of those movies. I will talk to you later, my friend. Good luck.
Thank you.
And anyone listening, pair these wines and get yourself some Abbot Claim. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Abbot Claim for letting me come into their property, drink all their wine, and talk about Armageddon. Also, if I do not get some messages on what you think Armageddon is and what you think these movies are, I'm going to be very upset, because all I want to do is talk about wine and movies. I want to thank my producer, John Adams, for putting up with this crazy podcast, and I would like to thank you for listening. Everybody go to somtv.com, and don't forget, we want you to watch our content, listen to our things. If you cannot afford it or you need a little help, just send us a message on Instagram or at hello@somtv.com and we'll send you a discount. All right, everybody, please be safe. Get ready for Halloween. And we really look forward to showing you our new film coming in 2 weeks on the Lathwaites. Talk soon.